Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our second season of our Work Redefined podcast. Where in this season, we're going to be shedding a whole new light on work, but also focusing in on women specifically who are doing it all, and also women who have faith at the forefront. And so we want to welcome those of you who are new. If you've never tuned in, welcome. And we drop a new podcast every Tuesday, and we are going to start video broadcasting these on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. So you can listen to the podcast in the morning if that's better for you, or if you want to watch that video at night, that's an option too. And so I want to invite you to commit to your growth and development. Wouldn't it be cool if you listened to every single episode this year and made an investment to grow in preventing your burnout and also creating less stress and more peace and joy in your life? Well, so how can you do it? Well, simply subscribe to our podcast wherever it is that you consume it, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We use the app Anchor if you just want to listen on. And so subscribe wherever you consume that. And then also we encourage you to download our burnout prevention guide, which can be found in the show notes of every podcast. And if you do that, we're going to send you an email with all sorts of good information that you will find valuable. And so we're going to work really, really hard to give you quality content. And if you like what we have to say and the value that we're bringing, please comment on our posts, share our podcast with others, write a review. It really makes a big impact on us and achieving our mission. And so if it's helpful, share with others. So if you're ready to grow, let's dive in to some new content. I am so excited to be joined today by Karli Moch, who is really, really involved. She works at Bio Girls in Fargo, North Dakota, and she's very passionate about helping young girls build confidence and self-esteem. And then also, Karli really has been on this new journey of discovering her purpose and developing that story. And so I just really admire Karli. I'm so impressed with all of her work, and I'm so excited that she can join me today. So thank you, Karli, for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
This is so much fun. And I guess just right off the bat, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what you're all about?
Sure. Well, like she said, I am Karli Moch, and I was born and raised here in Fargo, North Dakota. And I've got two little boys at home, a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they keep me busy. And Bio Girls is my girl fix, where I don't have the girls at home, but I get to help them build their self-esteem and come up with that plan where we can continue to grow that impact and reach just one more girl every single year. And so it's something I've really become passionate about. And many years ago, well, not many, but about 4 years ago, my life kind of took a big turn and got kind of a course correction opportunity, if you want to call it that. And I got really sick. And so coming out of that illness, I really was able to find my faith again and re-dig into that and really have it a focal point of the directions I would take thereafter. So,
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because I know something that I personally struggle with, and I think a lot of other women struggle with, is we feel like we have to be a good friend, a good coworker, a good mom, a good this, a good that, but then also we have to be a good Christian. And I think, as a woman of faith myself, in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, I really need to put God and put my faith first. But sometimes it's hard in the busyness of the day to day to make God a priority. And so in your experience, I mean, how do you incorporate faith into your life and even into the workplace?
yeah, I mean, really, up until recently, I haven't been that good at doing it daily and being that committed in the word on a daily basis. But I have always had this innate ability to really be able to hear and see the messages and really follow without much question. And so I've always had that in me. And up until recently, I got baptized at Prairie Heights, and I feel like ever since then it has been one thing after another where God is just so loud and obvious in every step that I've taken since. And so I've really been diving more into the word and learning. And how I do that is daily, I've made time for myself with the two littles at home. Even if it's 15 minutes, I go downstairs by the fire and just sit by and do a book study that I've been doing at the book of James right now, which is really has been a really practical guide for me and convicting at the same time, of just the way that I want to be more of, and then also where I think I'm doing it right. And so it's been a really good guide for me, and I've been really kind of giving that time to him first thing in the morning, and it's been a really good shift. Now at work, we have an awesome thing in our break room or our printer area. We have a giant sheet that says the power of prayer, and we all put our, whether it's our goals or something in our personal lives that we need prayer on, we have prayer circles in there. And so each of us, as we go in and out of there, printing things, grabbing things, supplies, we see what's on each other's heart, and we're able to go ahead and circle that for each other and be there for one another in a very visible way. So
that reminds me of that book you gave me, The Circle Maker.
Yes, that's where we got it from. It was just, with Bio Girls, we have a piece of devotion within our program, and we thought, why not have that a part of our everyday and a part of our big goals and dreams for the amount of impact that we're having? Why not have him in every step of that? When we have these big, audacious goals, he should be right there beside us during those. And so putting those on our prayer circles and having that the forefront of everything that we're doing is what we've incorporated.
I have so many questions already. You've said a number of things that really have sparked in my head. But one of the things too, I've been hearing this from a lot of different friends lately, and it just seems like it's really speaking to me, and I want to know your input. You said that all of a sudden God's voice is really loud. And I think that there are a lot of women out there who don't feel that way. They're confused, they're struggling, and they're like, God, I can't hear your voice. What advice do you have for women that are in that position of like, I want to hear God's voice, but I'm having a hard time really hearing it in my life?
Yeah, I'd say very simple is to just slow down and to pause and take those moments and embrace those pause moments, because we're always going so fast that I feel like, especially as women, we want all the information before we make the next step. And so you probably are hearing him and you probably are getting those signs, but we're just going so fast that we're not taking that time to really recognize what he's guiding you to do, because we're just going to the next thing way too quick. Oftentimes it just takes that moment of just stepping back and having that pause moment that you can really listen or just follow blindly. Don't ask too many questions. And if you feel the calling some direction, just take it, leave the fear with him. And that's where I feel like you really get that really louder voice and that louder sign. And then also that feeling that you can take a breath and it's not all on you. When you give that up, it is like the most freeing thing you can have, because I feel like right now I'm running a million miles a minute just because of all the things that I'm doing and getting involved in, but yet I've had the most energy that I've had. And I think that really comes down to getting myself in the right things and for the right reasons that align with what he wants me to be doing. And so that everything is just being charged and energized by that purpose that he's giving me. And so just really relying on taking those little inklings, whether it's a sign that you get or whether it's a song you hear or it's a name you hear in your head, or it's a dream. A lot of times I get these dreams that I'm like, oh, I wake up and I was like, I need to talk to her. Or it's just those little moments, and just go. I've always just had that, just go. I don't really ask too many questions.
Well, that's a good point too. I think oftentimes, even as Christians, we sit and we wait because we're waiting for this big sign. But it sounds like what you're saying is that it's the little nudges, it's those little moments, those little whispers where just that small action can be exactly what God's wanting you to do.
100%. I feel like sometimes we need those big signs, especially those who aren't as willing to just follow And so he will eventually give you those, but then after that, it's up to you to continue to make that happen. He's not going to give you, I read an analogy. It was like, when you're going off of your training wheels and your parents are beside you and you're on these wheels, and then they're with you every step of the way, giving you every guidance, and then you take them off, but you still have to do the work. And so he'll give you these signs and direction, but he's not going to carry you all the way through. There is the work that you need to do, along those lines.
You still
Yeah.
have to pedal.
Yeah, exactly.
Pedal
Yeah.
your feet, keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's so powerful. I know for you, you've had some pretty big life events that have led you to this place where you're at. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about, I know you gave that Women Connect talk about kind of your journey towards success, but what you ended up finding in the end. I would love, your kind of abbreviated version of that story, because I think it has a lot to do with who you are and your mission towards helping people find purpose.
Yeah, abbreviated version. I don't know if I've ever given that. Let me give it a shot.
It doesn't have to be short.
No. It's good. It's good to be shorter. It oftentimes gets too long. So, no, about 4 years ago, I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and up until that point, I've been a pretty healthy individual, and I haven't had too many rough patches in life. I've always had the luxury of growing up in a healthy home and great parents and good friends, and not too many hardships as a child and growing up. And once I got sick, it took me into a very deep spiral really quick. I was diagnosed, and then within a month, I was spending time in the hospital, admitted for twice there over a month time period. So I spent over 30 days in the hospital, and it was looking really grim. I mean, I went through a lot of different treatments and nothing was working. Had a 1-year-old son at the time. It was really hard to leave him and be in the hospital alone, every night. And so we ended up having 3 surgeries that saved my life, and I'm so thankful for. But at 30 years old, you're waking up and you have a temporary stoma and ostomy bag, and you're looking down going, what just happened? It just was nothing that you can prepare yourself for as an individual, as a family. It was hard on my husband and my kid. I even look back just recently going through some journal entries, and just I remembered so clearly how Dawson kind of it's like he turned on me. He was a mama's boy, and then he was kind of like not angry with me, but just was really attached to Dad for a long time. And I think it's because I was gone for so long, and it was just those 2 at home. And but I just remember like being so emotional about that detachment it seemed to give us. And so I just fought tooth and nail to get that back, and luckily we did. But it didn't take long. But I just remember those really emotional moments of just losing that closeness with him for a while there. But during those moments, I felt like God was just fighting for me. And I just had to be still and understand the challenge that he was placing in my life to guide me to more purposeful living. And it did just that. I mean, I woke up and I basically had a midlife crisis, and woke up with a newfound purpose for life, and a really good chance to dive deep into what I was doing and what I wasn't doing, and really get back out and live on purpose, and start serving others. I wasn't doing any of that prior. So it really just found a new purpose in life for me, which was to give back to others. And my biggest strength, I think, is growing relationships and being around people, and clearly talking. But I really found a way to use those strengths for so much more good, and to be an advocate for things that I am extremely passionate about, with adoption and ulcerative colitis and things like that, to help others along the way.
Well, and it sounds like one of the things I love to talk to others about is what is success.
Mhm.
right? I know different people have different definitions of success, but I can't help but think that after going through an experience like that, that your definition of success probably completely flipped.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I was in corporate America at the time, and so I was about 10 years in and was just constantly feeling like I needed to get to the next step, and to prove myself as a female and, what success looked like there. And to me, before that was just getting to the top of that ladder, and, that's when you know you've made it and you've got a team and you're just at the top, and that's where success lives. And, I was really driven by that ego driving up that ladder. And I wasn't driven by anything that had set my soul on fire at all. And so after coming out of that, it took me about a week back into the real life of work, was like, what am I doing? This has little to no purpose. Um, I'm working 70 hours a week, so much stress, which was so hard on my body, hard on my marriage. I would come home and we'd be at each other's throat because I was just so stressed, and would of course take it out on the people you love. It just somehow comes
Mhm.
out that way. And so it was just not worth it. That wake up call was just that moment of realizing what the point of life is. And it wasn't that. So,
So for those women who are tuning in and listening, who maybe are kind of in that rat race and trying to balance
mhm.
it all and struggling because maybe they haven't experienced some sort of life-changing experience like you did. I mean, what advice would you have for those women that are really in that pursuit of success, but also maybe even recognizing that, hey, I probably should slow down? I mean, I know you mentioned slowing down as one
Yeah.
advice before, but are there other things that come to mind?
Yeah. I think had I stayed in that, and, towards the end of my career there, I tried to make the changes that I would suggest now, where I was leading a team and I was trying to go to bat for them and try to, lead by example of not working those hours and teaching them that it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Let's just do what we can, and just being that type of leader without feeling like you're going to get the backlash. And even if you are, still standing true to what you believe in, because you will be purposely helping those below you or around you by being true to who you are and standing up for boundaries in the workplace, and
Mhm.
being an advocate to set those and lead by example. I think there's a great example. We were just making a ton of phone calls for Giving Hearts Day, and I got a gal's voicemail, and she was a realtor, and she said she was kind of going through her name, and then it was, if this is after the hours of 6 p.m., I'm spending time with my family, and I will get back to you tomorrow. I was like, there you go. In the most
Mm,
fast paced and time driven occupation there is, I would argue. I think that was leading by example and saying, you know what, if I miss a sale, I miss a sale because my family is more important. So there's so many little things that you can do within the job that you are at, to
mm.
give yourself more peace, more boundaries, and less burnout.
No, that's so cool that you brought that up. I know, yeah, the voicemail thing, that's huge. That's
hmm
so, so cool. And then like the out of office, being very specific with your out of office, I think can be
Yep.
really helpful. Any other ideas or tips that you've used that for setting boundaries?
I am not the best at setting boundaries, but I'm learning. Luckily, I work in a place now where it is a lead by example situation, and she is very understanding of, family and life in general, and just understands the importance of not only what we're doing, but our lives. We have things that come up, and she's super flexible. So right now I feel super blessed, but I would say when I was in the thick of it, it was just don't dim your voice. I mean, I've talked to so many people who are in or were in corporate where they spoke up and then they were scolded by doing so, and should I just be quiet? Should I they're asking these questions of, is it me? Like, I feel like anytime I push the envelope, like I'm getting the one that's being scrutinized. And I just looked at her and was like, then you need to leave. I right now, I hate to say to leave your corporation, but maybe you need to have a conversation about the true reality of what's going on. And if they're not willing to change, then just standing up for who you are and your values is important. And maybe they'll adjust, or maybe they'll find you another position that might work better for your daily life and not feeling so stressed.
Well, and you speak to a good point. I think a lot of women are afraid that if they tell their boss or their manager that they're feeling a little bit of burnout, I think there's this fear that if they even admit it, that they'll be,
Yes.
fired or they'll be out the door. And so that's something that I'm really intrigued by too, is like, why, well, one, why does it have to get to that point where someone gets to the point of burnout where their manager hasn't even noticed, like, because you can usually see signs in people if they're starting to feel exhausted. And so I don't know, do you have any tips for leaders, how they can make sure that their employees are staying engaged?
Yeah, I mean, I was even going to say, I'd argue that if you did have that fear of retaliation by bringing something up like that, I would say that's probably not the right place for you. As a leader, that be in that same line of make sure that you have an open door where people feel comfortable coming to you and saying, my workload is overloaded. I need some help. Like, is there something we can, split this up? Is there any way we can adjust some of this? I mean, if you are not a welcoming leader where people feel like they can be heard, it's going to be really difficult to retain employees at this point. I just feel like the culture is shifting, and people like you guys coming in is the best thing, because I feel like it gives that mediator situation where people can feel heard. You can come up with solutions. And I think the people you're working with are the best types of leaders because they are willing to hear the feedback. The ones that are saying, no way, Kelsey, don't come in here, those might be ones that are like, maybe they need some self-evaluation as to the way that they're leading their organization or their team. I just really think it's become a culture of welcoming opinions and adjusting where you need to so you can retain good employees.
Yeah, it's been interesting. We've had a couple, in the course of a year, we've had a couple leaders say, oh, I don't believe in burnout. Or just primarily like burnout isn't a thing. And but it's more coming from kind of more of that mindset of you go to work, you earn a paycheck, just more it's a more old school approach. Whereas I think it's a lot of the younger demographic. And I think especially women in the last couple of years have really been speaking out about burnout, because I think about even just, typically the woman, if the school shuts down because of a blizzard, the woman's the one that oftentimes is staying at home with the kids, I've been noticing. And so just not that the husband doesn't share that responsibility sometimes too, but in the last couple of years, we've just really seen that especially women have been choosing to opt out of work because it's not even worth working due to like the chaos of the childcare and the pandemic and everything. So it's tough.
Yeah, it's hard. I think of the poor teachers because, like, who's helping them? Kelsey, get in there and help them. I'm like, that is just talk about an occupation that is going to run into such burnout that's going to shift the future of what education looks like if they don't get this right soon.
Teachers and healthcare, healthcare too. It's just
100%.
It's tough. Well, I know earlier you mentioned reading, I think you said the book of James. Is there a favorite story that you've heard in there lately that you guys have read together that you can recall?
In the book of James, I think the biggest thing for me, which when I talked about it being convicting, was the power of your tongue and the way that you speak. And so sometimes when we feel threatened or whatever that feeling is, jealousy, comparison, we often kind of lash out in our words. And so for me, sometimes I have to catch myself for saying things that I shouldn't say or in the heat of the moment. And so that was probably the most impactful thing I read was just if you're going to believe in the word and you're going to read and you're going to act it out, then you better be talking like it as well. And so sometimes for me, it's a self check of like, probably shouldn't have said that, one of those things. So that was one
Mm.
of the most convicting things in the book for me. But
That's so good. I know, yeah, it's easy to, as talkers, I
mhm,
know for me, sometimes things will just come out. I had it happen a couple days ago, and I thought, that really wasn't something I should be sharing or talking
yeah.
about with other people. And um, I guess, do you have any tips for women who maybe really struggle with comparison, jealousy, all those things that you were mentioning? Like, how can we support each other to create more positive feelings towards others and using our words in a more positive way?
Oh man. Well, I think we need Bio Girls for adults. And we could
Mhm.
all take in the messages that we're teaching these girls because I would argue if we all had that in their age group and we were continuously getting these messages that we all need to hear at a young age and developing that inner critic and that inner voice to be a positive one, we wouldn't have as many issues trying to combat that as an adult. So
Mhm.
I would say, just getting a good group of friends. I'd say over the last year and a half, especially. But again, it's just one connection after the next, and I've really found out that no connection is a bad connection. Sometimes in my line of work, I often get a calendar like filled before I even understand what's happening the next day. And so sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I connecting with him on? And then I'll be like, oh my gosh, here I go. And then I got there and I talked about ulcerative colitis, and he said, I just got diagnosed last week and I have no idea what to do. And so then I think to myself, I'm like, that is why, Karli, those are the connections and just listening to those things and being there for one another. And that has really gained a good big circle of amazing human beings in my life that I'm so grateful for. So surrounding yourself with people that are going to push you and tell you the truth, um, and
Mm.
tell you you probably shouldn't have said that. Those are the
Mm.
people that I'm trying to surround myself with, and I feel like I've got a pretty good crew right now. So
Mm. I just got goosebumps when you were talking about that guy that you took that
yeah,
meeting with.
because sometimes you get that, you the same way. You've got so many meetings and um, connections and calls and mediators of different things, and you're like, oh man, sometimes you just get into that like another connection or another meeting, and then it's always meaningful, no matter what. If it was for what you thought you were going to connect and maybe get value out of, it could be something totally different. And so I've chalked it up as no connection is a bad connection for sure.
Hmm. I love that. I would agree. And sometimes, to your point, it's easy to feel exhausted and feel like, oh,
Oh, sorry, do you need this?
no,
Okay.
it's okay. Oh, well, I know we're approaching our time here. It's been so fun having this conversation. I feel like we could talk for probably 2 more hours about
I
all
know.
this stuff. So I guess a couple last
Mhm.
closing questions. First, our demographic of women, high achieving women trying to do it all, trying to balance it all. Do you have any last, like, really big pieces of advice um, on how these women can remember to, like, keep faith at the forefront and also take care of themselves?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing over the last probably 6 or 9 months, I have downloaded an app. It's called the Youversion Bible App. And
Mm.
on there, you can search anything in the search bar, and it will either pull up verses from what you're looking for, plans that you can follow, plans that you can do together with other people. So for example, burnout, there will be plans on burnout, and there'll be a 7-day plan that you could follow, or, I was struggling with letting go of something recently. And so I literally wrote let go in there, and there was plans of how you can forgive and let go of things. And so it was really practical, but also helps you dig in if you've never dug in before, and kind of gets that ball rolling too. And it's super simple. It's a no-brainer. It's right on your phone, super accessible, and it's a good place to start. You could even write, taking care of yourself or whatever you want in there, and it'll pop up things that are relevant and give you an action plan.
So that was Youversion Bible App.
Yep, the Youversion Bible App. Yep.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes.
Yes.
I'll add that to our show notes. And I guess the last question that I wanted to end on with our conversation, because I know that you love music. What is one of your favorite songs, maybe a worship song or just a song in general to listen to when you're feeling discouraged, or just something that really lifts you up?
Oh, Look What You've Done is probably one of my favorite songs to pump me up, and it takes me back to how I'm grateful for the wounds that he put in my life so that it could get me to where I am now. But it just reminds me of those moments of hardship, and look what he did because of it and through it. And so Look What You've Done is one of my favorite jams to get back in it. So yeah.
One of these days we'll have to have you sing it for us.
Yeah, that one might be a little out of range, but we'll see.
Well, I know you're a beautiful singer, so it just, that was a song or a question that I thought I had to throw in there.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, Karli, thank you so much for your time. This has been so much fun. I'll also include the website to Bio Girls. And then is there any other places that we can find you?
Just I would say I'm active on LinkedIn and Instagram, probably most, but following our accounts for Bio Girls on Facebook, Instagram, and then biogirls.org has a lot of our information on our program and how you can get involved. So finding a way to get involved in something you're passionate about outside of work is always a great thing, and to help alleviate some of that burnout too. So we'd love to have you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been another really exciting episode with Karli Moch. Thanks everyone for